Welcome to our introductory video series about creating your own webinars. In this video, we'll get started getting productive with webinars and why you should use them. In this video set, I'm going to talk you through getting started with webinars, particularly how to get started with them, get productive with them, and the reasons to use them, and also how to profit with them. There are a number of different ways you can use webinars. Also, while I'm calling them webinars, there are often other terms used, such as webcasts, for example, and you may come across some other terms, but I'll be using the term webinars. Effectively, you can think of them as a presentation done over the Internet. What people viewing see and hear is obviously you talking and whatever you've chosen to show on your screen. For example, a common way to do webinars is just have a PowerPoint presentation on your computer. And then, obviously, you talk over it with a microphone and go through the presentation. And that then gets broadcast to everyone listening. So they hear you and see the PowerPoint slides on your computer as you click through them. As you flick from one slide to another slide to another slide, they see whatever is happening on your computer. The benefit of a webinar is that rather than a teleseminar or a teleconference, as they're sometimes called, which is effectively the same thing but just done over the telephone, with a webinar, they're seeing something to go along with the audio. The downside of webinars, as opposed to teleconferences, for example, is the fact that people have to be in front of their computer to take part, whereas with a teleconference or teleseminar, people can call in from wherever they may be. If they have a cell phone, for example, or if they're in their office, they may not be able to take part in a webinar at their office, whereas they could listen in on the telephone. So that's the downside. But the benefits are many as well. You will have to weigh the pros and cons to see if webinars are right for your market. You can use webinars for training, for staff training, for example, if your staff is in different locations. Or you can use it to offer training courses, either free or paid training courses. For example, you could charge $400 for an 8-week course that includes a webinar each week talking through a certain piece of software. You could do it that way, and of course with webinars you can record them, and then you can also offer the recordings to those people taking part in your class. Or, of course, if you wish, you could sell these recordings separately as a standalone product. Often, webinars are used for sales. They're presented as free presentations, but if the presentations have a lot of usable content, let's say it's an hour-long presentation, the first 50 minutes are going to be very usable content. Or actually, let me give you a more specific example. Let's say you're selling an 8-week class on how to master Microsoft Word. Then let's say you offer a free hour-long training class on little-known Microsoft Word tips and tricks. So you promote this free class, people attend, and for the first 50 minutes you're offering them very useful and usable content. You're giving them relevant and useful information. In this example, you're offering Microsoft Word tips and tricks. The benefit of such a webinar is that it establishes your credibility immediately because you're demonstrating it then and there, and you're building a relationship with the people listening because they get to know you a little bit. They get to know the sound of your voice and how well you know your subject and so on. Also, you have, in theory at least, you have their undivided attention. Obviously, some people aren't going to stay to the end of the webinar, but a good percentage are. So you have their undivided attention, and the benefits of that are, there are benefits to having a webinar rather than just a video recording off your website. Because with that video recording off your site, people can watch it a bit and then leave it, watch it a bit later and leave it again, then they forget about it and so on. People can take it or leave it or forget about it as they wish. But a webinar is promoted as an event, a one-time occurrence. So if you miss out, you've missed out entirely. So people are more likely to make the effort to watch and listen and stay to the end. Okay, the first 50 minutes of the webinar are good and very usable content for everyone and establishes your credibility and helps people start getting to know you, like you, and trust you. You're building a relationship because rather than just cold text on a web page, webinars actually help people get to know you. Then the last 10 minutes of your hour segue to a pitch. For example, with Microsoft Word tips and tricks, you could say that what you've seen now is just the tip of the iceberg of what you'll discover in my incredibly in-depth 8-week master course. In the course, we meet every week by webinar, and I teach new Microsoft Word tips and tricks, and you can ask questions, and so on and so forth. That's often the way webinars are used, with hour-long formats, or even longer sometimes, although you do have to be a little careful of taking up too much of people's time. Obviously, they have other things to do, and you have to keep them interested. But often, the first 50 minutes is an introduction, and good information, and so on. And the last 10 minutes is trying to get people to sign up for whatever you're selling, whatever your course is related to, for example. The benefit of doing such a sales presentation as a webinar is that it creates credibility and so on. Also, because it's an event, people are more likely to sign up then and there, because they're listening intently, and hopefully they've gotten to know and like and trust you. And then you redirect them to a special offer. Actually, that's the way it's often done. A special offer for the first 20 sign-ups, for example. So let's say you have 500 people watching your webinar. Then let's say you have a special offer for the first 20, or the first 50, or whatever you wish. Because they've been paying attention, and everything's live, they're more likely to jump on your offer then and there, so it can work very effectively as a sales presentation. So those are a number of ways that a webinar can be used, and as I mentioned, there are a number of benefits to them. You would need to weigh whether a webinar is more beneficial for your needs than a teleseminar. I won't be talking about teleseminars in this video series, but often the technical side of a teleseminar or teleconference is quite straightforward. You sign up with a company, they explain how you do it, and you just call up a special number at a certain time. However, with teleseminars and webinars, the formats are quite similar. But obviously you can show more with a webinar. But the formats, whether you're training or selling, can be quite similar. Just as a side note, with teleseminars or teleconferences, if the presenter wants to offer more information afterward about what they do, they may need to send along a PDF to all the participants so they can follow along while they're listening to the presentation. So really, that's similar to a webinar, but instead of actually seeing it as you show it to them, they have to open up a PDF and scroll through it as you're talking. So it's similar in that respect, but again, they'll need to be in front of a computer. So a lot of similarities there, but I'll be focusing on webinars here. Anyway, that's an introduction into what they are and how they can be used, and the benefits and also disadvantages of them. What I'll cover in the next video is some possible solutions for running webinars and how you can get up and running with them quickly.